All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's episode of the Lighthouse Sessions. And I'm really excited. I have my new friend, Tara Gooch, with me. Tara, why don't you introduce yourself, tell my audience a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, so hello, everyone. My name is Tara LaFon Gooch. I am the CEO of Best Branding Solutions. I'm also an international TEDx speaker, two-time best-selling author, and podcast host of Grasp Confidence Podcast. So what do? I love helping other people show up as the best versions of themselves, literally and physically. So whether they're showing up online as the best versions of themselves and building powerful brands and visibility, or whether they are improving their own life, sense of self-worth, level of confidence, etc., I love helping the whole person.
I love it. And we're going to go on a whole bunch of tangents, I already know, because authors and writing are some of my favorite people, and I love podcasters. We'll rewind a little here, but how did you come up with, I know you have the GRASP method, and that's the theme of your podcast. Why don't you, first of all, let's talk about GRASP, and then we'll see where the conversation takes us.
Sure. Yeah, it was something that I developed at the lowest point in my life. And that was not that long ago. It was only just in 2022. I was a recent corporate dropout. I was at the time a corporate sales director. I was checking off all the boxes, right? I'd gotten my MBA not too long before that. And it was in a career that most people want. I had a company car, I had a nice office, etc. But deep down inside, I felt this sense of just empty. And it was a kind of a battle of lifelong confidence issues that I had, and they were all starting to bubble to the surface. So I was recently diagnosed with depression and anxiety and just didn't feel like I had a purpose in this world. What am I going to do? I just dropped out of this corporate job, literally left everything behind, Jeff. No health insurance. Okay. No health insurance, no car because I had a company car. I also had a company phone and laptop. When I say I started my entrepreneurship journey with zero, I mean it.
You slammed the door and walked away from it all, right?
Slammed the door, right? Lit the match, burnt the boats. Literally.
The bridge, the boats, the shoreline.
Everything. And I had gotten opportunities to go back into corporate. I had a really awesome job offer after that was going to pay me about 25% more than I was already making and give all the same benefits. But I kept failing at securing a job that they said was mine. And I'm like, how is this even possible? I must be Yes, I must be a total failure.
Yeah.
And I went through this spiral of depression because that's what happens sometimes, right? And I read a book that changed my life. I went to my first networking event. I had never gone to a networking event. This was in 2022. Somebody on LinkedIn reached out to me and said, you should come to this event. I was like, what the heck is a networking event? Okay, I'll go.
Sure, what is it?
Whatever that means. And then the guest speaker shared a book that changed her life, and I read it and changed mine. I did not know at the time this would change my entire life, right? And the book was The Science of Getting Rich by Wallace D. Wattles, published in 1910. Now, as I'm reading this book, I'm realizing that I didn't have a great relationship with myself, with spirituality, with money, with success, all of these things that are essential to being an entrepreneur. And it was in chapter 7 when the word gratitude was mentioned. And it's like I'd never heard that word before. I don't know if that makes sense. Obviously, we've heard the word gratitude before, right? I mean, I'm now in my early 40s. Of course, I had heard that word before.
But you didn't hear it.
I didn't hear it.
Yeah.
It was a different resonance. And I realized at that moment, gratitude is not chapter 7, it's chapter 1. And that's how the GRASP method came to be. So the first letter in GRASP is G, and it stands for gratitude because it was the foundational element that completely changed my life. And then as I kind of went on my journey and discovered what are the elements to change somebody's life, how can we put this in a framework that makes sense, that people remember, and that they can apply right now?
I love that. And I think, so you have no way of knowing this because I haven't shared this publicly, but I wrote a book. I looked at business and I figured if I'm studying business, the gold medalists in business are billionaires. That's my observation. I've had a lot of people tell me I'm crazy or too materialistic, but if we're talking about success in business, anybody who's built a billion-dollar company has something I can learn.
That's
Now,
right.
sometimes it's learning, oh, I don't want to be like that person. But the number one thing, and this was fascinating, Tara, is that 100% talk about gratitude. And most of them started as multimillionaires, and they were on this path because they were tired of failing. Most came from something dark. They went through a dark time and they said never again. It's amazing how many billionaires today were homeless at some point. But every single one of them said, I discovered gratitude. And
Yeah.
at some point, the acquiring wealth became about how to express my gratitude and give back, not about how much can I take from people. And it fascinated me.
Yes. And that is exactly it. Gratitude, I often refer to it as the law of increase. So when we have gratitude in our lives, not only do we experience more on some metaphysical level that's intangible, we actually, good things are attracted to us and abundance follows. So, in my TEDx talk, that's one thing I mentioned, is that gratitude is the foundation of confidence, but then confidence is the foundation for all success in life. So until you have that gratitude and can really capture that gratitude and have a relationship with it, success will always feel intangible for you.
Just slightly out of reach.
Just always slightly out of reach. And we see this. This is not some foreign concept. How many stories have you heard, Jeff, of somebody winning the lottery and losing it all? A Hollywood star coming into all of this money, losing it all.
Yeah.
I mean,
Athletes.
athletes.
Yeah.
The list goes on, right?
Yeah.
So there's a reason behind that. And I actually could go on for days about gratitude, so I won't bore you too much.
Oh, you couldn't if you tried, but thank you.
But it is a fascinating concept, and I've seen it in my own life, and it's too real to ignore. And there's a lot of science behind that as well. It does rewire your brain. And I am a firm believer that if you can rewire your brain, you can form new beliefs. And if you can form new beliefs, you can change your relationship with money, your view of success, and so many other things.
Well, and if I may, I think the aha moment. So I have a friend who once told me that we manifest everything good or bad. And I'm like, how dare you? And I was deeply offended. And then I stopped and I thought about it. And I was like, wait a minute. If I'm manifesting everything, if everything good or bad in my life comes through me, thank God, because that means I'm in control of what I get. And once you start to see that, then it is amazing. Like people talk about manifesting, and I'll be honest, when I first read, I think it was The Law of Attraction, or I heard The Secret, and I was like, I feel like what's missing is action. You can sit there. I remember this kid with a picture, and he'd sit on his couch every day and go, I want a bike, I want a bike. And then magically a bike showed up. And I'm like, no, the kid did something different to bring the bike into his world. But Napoleon Hill says, and I'm going to butcher it because I always do, what the mind can conceive and believe it can achieve. And that to me is the magic. And if we don't have the seeds of belief, we're not going to achieve. And if we do manage to dumb luck achieve it, win the lottery, what have you, we lose it very quickly.
Absolutely. I feel like it's about building a vessel to contain it.
Ooh,
And a lot
nice.
of people, when I say that, don't understand what that means. But if you consider an analogy of a light bulb, if you have a 60-watt light bulb and put 100 watts of electricity into it, it's going to break. It's going to shatter.
Explode, in fact, but yes.
Right? It's going to be really bad. There's nothing wrong with the light bulb. There's nothing wrong with the energy behind the light bulb. What's wrong is they're not compatible. So money gained either at someone else's expense, money gained when you can't hold it, when you don't have the vessel, when you don't have the responsibility, will leave you very quickly.
Yeah.
So it's very important. And I don't know how this happens, Jeff. Maybe you can enlighten me, but it's interesting that almost every conversation that I have with anybody, and this is our first time meeting, by the way.
Yes.
Has to do with money. And it's interesting, right? Because I have a lot of people ask me about money. How do you manifest? How do you get more abundance? How do you get more of these things? Until you have the vessel to hold it, it's never going to stay yours. So gratitude, and that's one of the really important things about gratitude, it's anchoring.
Ooh,
It
I love
keeps that, yes, it keeps that abundance with you, and it's a sustainable form of success. So not only is gratitude good for bringing increase into your life, but it's important to keep it in your life.
I love that. And I think I see this all the time. I'd hang out with a lot of business coaches, and everybody wants the magic, easy button or the silver bullet. And it's like, again, if you haven't earned the outcome, you're not going to hold on to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Exactly right. No amount of systems or processes can replace that. And that's something that's really important. So, in the Science of Getting Rich, and I'm a big fan of Napoleon Hill as well, it talks about, that as a business, we have to have a business that increases life. So we have a responsibility socially as a business owner to have a business that increases the life of anybody that it touches. And this is a good practice too, even if you don't have a business, that every life that you touch should be better off because of you. Every time you go into a room, how can you make it better? Every time you do a project, how can you make it better? How can you elevate? Every time you interact with a vendor, potential client, or whoever it is, how can you elevate them? You do this enough times, you will have no shortage of customers. It's not possible for you to have a shortage of customers.
Yeah.
And, it's about shifting the mindset from what can I get from someone, which is very needy and is not energetically high, to who do I get to give to today?
Ooh. And, it's funny. I read The Go-Giver during COVID, and I swear to God, Bob Berg and John David Mann, they reached out and shook me because there was just one little casual reference to a character called the Connector. It wasn't a main character in the book. They all just sort of talk, oh, the Connector. And I was like, I don't know who that is, but that's who I want to be. And, I've been lucky enough to have conversations with Bob and John David, about the book. And it's fascinating because so many people approach networking, and I feel like you were born to network, and you came to it late in life. You had that awakening that you needed. So many people approach networking and what's in it for me? And I love the energy of how can I help you?
It's a game changer, right? And even before this podcast, what did I offer you? I said, who else can I introduce you to? What about this person? What about this person? Before I even met you, I was offering to give back. And that's actually a big tenet in my business strategy. Well, we won't even use that word. It's a life strategy.
Yeah.
This thing I call give first, give often, and do it with love.
Yeah.
And you give without expectation of getting. You give often Because when you do, it signifies you're an abundant, wealthy person. People, again, want to be in your circle. They see you as somebody who can give them increase. And then give with love. You do it with the love for that other person. You don't have to know this person.
Yeah.
Again, you and I didn't meet. It doesn't matter. I want you to have an elevation of life just by interacting with me.
Yeah.
And
And for the record, we did meet for the first time today. And I said, as soon as you came on, I said, there's something about this woman. We're going to have an energetic, fun conversation. And,
that's great.
I think my favorite people give first. And that's why I have the podcast. It's like, who can I connect you with? Okay. I can now, I build this product, this service, and I approach it as I want to share my conversation with Tara with my network. And I guarantee somebody's going to reach out and say, Jeff, I need to meet her. And great.
Absolutely. And we don't always have to worry about what am I going to get out of this. It all comes back when and again, it starts with that intention. Just that intention of just, again, love for someone else. Instead of thinking, what can I get? It's who can I get? Who can I give?
Yeah.
And, the more you think like that, the better off your life will be and the better off the whole world will be. Somebody asked me this very powerful question during a podcast interview just a few weeks ago. They said, well, so many people are just tired. They're giving, and they're exhausted. I said, think about it. Really think about it. Have you ever been exhausted from giving without intention of getting something? Oh, no. Right?
Wait, what?
Wait, what?
That's weird.
Think about it, right?
Yep.
So we're only drained when we're taking. And you can even be a giver and be a taker at the same time if your energy is not matched, right? If you're saying to somebody, what can I get out of them? And that's the intention behind it, you're still going to be drained. Yeah. So that intention is so, so powerful.
Well, and it's fascinating, and I'll share this with you, Tara, because I'm exploring this. I've spent a lot of energy adapting to rooms. I can fit into any room. I swear my spirit animal is a chameleon. And, it's part of my neurodiversity. I can blend in, but it's exhausting.
Mm-hmm.
And I can blend into those transactional rooms where everybody's, elbowing, trying to get to the trough first. And it's like, I don't want to be in these rooms anymore. I want to be in rooms with visionaries. And it is weird, but the word visionary entrepreneur, the phrase came to me, and I was like, I think those are my people. Those are the ones I want to hang around with. And it's affirming because the right people. I asked you, said, hey, would you like to be on my podcast? Sure. Like, it was, again, first time we actually had a real conversation. She was adding value to me, and I want to add value back. My favorite people compete over who can outgive the other, like not in a mean way.
Yeah.
And my least favorite people, they're sitting there eyeing it going, what's the angle? What's the catch? What do you want? And I'm like, your energy tells me everything. Thank you.
Yeah. Just thank them, right?
Yep.
Because at least they didn't waste your time.
Yep.
And it took me a long time to get to this point. I'm not saying this was some magical overnight shift, right? I started this journey in 2022, but I will say that, practicing this daily and actually making this a lifestyle habit changed my life. It changed the way I view other people. It changed my own sense of self-entitlement. It was like a mirror on myself.
Yeah.
Once I realized, hey, I have a little bit of self-entitlement issues here, and got like emotionally intelligent and aware, which, by the way, most people think they're emotionally intelligent and aware. It's literally like 10% or less of the population globally.
Yeah.
So there's nothing wrong or ashamed of being in that spot.
Yeah.
Just recognize it and then take active steps to change it.
Well, the fascinating thing to me is the people who are emotionally aware question whether they are or not. The people who aren't don't even think to have the conversation.
That's right.
And to me, that is fascinating. And I'm getting to the point now, I can read other people. I can tell who's done some work on themselves. Like, in my opinion, most entrepreneurs have been through, a friend of mine calls them the nights of hell. I call it the dark nights of the soul. We've been there on the edge of the abyss going, is this all there is? And when we come back from it, one of the things I find about entrepreneurs is they find a way to turn their mess into a message. And, people like, I know a lot of people who are employees, they'll be employees all their lives. God bless them, the world needs them. And there are people who are business owners that just want to maintain. They'll never do the work. They'll never sit down, and I find it absolutely fascinating. It's like, okay, what rough edges in this brain of mine can I find where I'm screwing myself up or I'm tripping myself? And it is the greatest gift, because the work I do on myself, I can then show up with love and say, hey, Tara, nice to meet you. What's going on? Rather than, oh God, I hope she doesn't see that I'm having a bad day. We drop that pretense of, everybody talks about authentic, and it's like, authentic means you are who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's nothing you fake, right? So one of my least favorite sayings is the most popular advice there is on confidence, which is fake it till you make it.
Yep.
I cannot stand that. Why are we teaching people to fake anything about themselves?
Yep.
This is how you don't find your tribe. This is how you don't establish real human connection, is when you feel like you have to fake something about who you are.
Yeah.
When you show up genuinely, again, with the idea of just adding value, just, if I can change someone's life by the message that I share today, that's the goal. I'm not putting the lighthouse on me. This is a lighthouse on this message that I know can really help people in a positive way. So I'm going to share it. And it doesn't matter. I believe the money always follows the impact 100%, right? So it's so important, though. And I like what you said, your message. I didn't have a great background.
Yeah.
I mean, gosh, I grew up as the youngest of 5 kids from a single mother. There were times in my life when we were below the poverty line, right? I remember going to school in hand-me-downs, being picked on. We had a dirt road, right? It wasn't glamorous.
Yeah.
And I knew that I wanted something different for my life. I knew I was capable of more. I knew deep down inside, I call it a spark. I had a spark within me that wanted something more. And, that mess, if you will, became my message of, regardless of where you came from, you can go anywhere you want to go. And you just have to have, some mentor guidance. You don't even necessarily have to have a skill set, right? But that will come. Like, everything will come. Just start working on yourself. It starts with yourself. And I just knew that I wanted to break that cycle and change the narrative and be the author in my own story. Again, it starts with that self-awareness of where are you, putting the mirror on that, and then figuring out where you want to go from there.
Well, and I'll just share with you that when I was starting down this journey of self-discovery, I had a journal, and I filled it with probably about 10 pages of all the negative labels, all the things that I'd been told were bad about me. And then I thanked the universe, and I said, okay, now we have a starting point.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing about entrepreneurs. Wherever we are, we go, well, that happened. We fall down, we dust ourselves off. And I love that you turned your world around, and you're chasing your dreams now. I have a really weird question, and then we'll get to other weird questions. I see in your profile that you have CVP. What is that?
Good question. It stands for Certified Virtual Presenter.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So I'm a keynote speaker as well. So I own a branding agency, but then through my personal brand, I also write books and speak. I do a lot of virtual presentations and workshops and things like that. So it's good to hire a certified virtual presenter so that your event's going to be a success.
I love it. And I just want to point out that I built a very successful company pre-COVID, and it was a live in-person networking event to launch live in-person masterminds.
Ooh,
And we went high, and then March 15th, give or take, crashed into the ground because my partner said to me, Zoom is not real. We will never succeed as long as we're on Zoom. And I think that was the greatest gift of COVID, was that there's now people who are 100% virtual. I used to be the speaker, and I can tell you, I'd meet my wife and kids at the airport on a Saturday. They give me a clean suitcase full of clothes. Sunday, I'd fly out to the next speaking gig. And now I work from home, and
it's so
I
nice,
love
right?
it.
Yeah. I'm, not one of those types of speakers that has to be on the road all the time and do a conference every week just for the sake of doing it. It's about real intentional use of time for me as well, because I have a family and they're only little for so long. My
Mhm.
daughter's 9, and I really want to be around with her. And that's one of the, benefits of entrepreneurship, is that I get to pick my own schedule. During the summer, I plan to be at the pool a lot, right? And present-minded. I don't necessarily have to be on a plane all the time, and it's not about the vanity stuff.
Yeah.
It's about what really impacts, and that's why I love the virtual as well.
Well, it's funny because I didn't know any other way. And, pre-COVID, I think that was COVID's gift, was we all took a breath and went, maybe we're not chasing the right things, or we're playing the wrong game and we're winning at someone else's game. I made my sponsors a lot of money by speaking, and I came back with a lot of tears. It's, oh, sorry, I missed this. I missed soccer. I missed this. And now it's like, I don't miss anything,
Yeah.
and sometimes, during COVID, we actually homeschooled. So my kids would do their work, and when they were done, it was like, oh, let's go do something, play something together, or, I decided, and I'll share this with you because we're entrepreneurs, and entrepreneurs do weird things. This morning, I announced to my kids that they are now officially enrolled in Dad's entrepreneurial school.
Yep.
And I said, what do you think of that? And my 12-year-old said, I don't think so. My 16-year-old was like, I'm in. And I said, you turned me down before you even asked what it meant. And he's like, okay, Dad, what does it mean? And I said, every day in the car, one way going to or from school, we're going to talk about something going on in the world of entrepreneurs. And he's like, oh, I could do that. But the key is, and I'd share this with you. You need to meet my friend Amanda Banks. She is a fellow TED obsessed. And when her daughter was, I think, 10, she helped her launch her own business, and that became mommy daughter time.
Wow.
She effectively, and I was like, oh my God, Amanda, you're amazing. She's a business coach to her daughter. And I was like, why the hell wouldn't I do that for my kids? And it was just one of those so obvious I missed it moments. So
I love that. I've brought my daughter on client dinners since she was probably 5 or so. Client dinners, just different meetings, if I can. I'm doing a presentation next month, and she'll be in the audience. I want her to kind of see what it's like. I just did a TV interview last Friday, so it hasn't even been a week yet. It's just been a couple of days. And we went to Salt Lake City, Utah for a TV interview. She came on set. I want her to see what it's like, right? To be an entrepreneur, to try new things, to go on TV or podcast or whatever. And I will say this, the funniest thing, the first client dinner I took her to, we were at a steakhouse. He orders a dessert. So it was him and his wife, me and my husband and my daughter. She gets the biggest spoon. I'm like, where does the spoon come from? I didn't even know you had. It was like, the soup spoon, right?
Yeah.
8-serve spoon, the biggest half of his cake. Like, he ordered a chocolate cake.
Yeah. Family style, right?
Takes it. I mean, the cake was stacked on that spoon. It was hilarious. Shoves it in her mouth, and he said, I guess we can share. And I was like, at first mortified, right?
Yeah. The mom in you is going, oh, I should stop this, but
we just ordered another.
Yeah.
We just ordered another. But it was a funny conversation, right? And yeah, take your kids with you, let them see. It's such great learning.
Well, I used to think, if there's a at work Jeff and then at home Jeff, I'm missing out on half my life at any given point.
Yeah.
And it's funny because people always apologize to me, and this was a COVID thing. Somebody who'd always worked in an office, and all of a sudden they're working from home, and their kids are being homeschooled, and they're like, "Oh, I'm sorry if my kids are noisy," and I'm like, "I'm not. If my kid's noisy, they know within reason, but." I also know if they're noisy, it's because they need something.
Yeah.
And I think that was one of the gifts of COVID was we were brought into each other's homes. We dropped some of those, fakeness of, it's like you used to go and see somebody on stage and they were like this person up on the pedestal. And now it's like, yeah, they got kids that scream when they stub their toe. I mean, oh boy.
Yep, they're just like anybody else.
Yes. Now I'm going to get personal because I really you fascinate me, and I will make some introductions, and people watching this pay attention because I care about the connections I make. I want to make sure Tara's time is honored, and I want to make sure people in my network. I love the fact I podcast because I can add value to Tara and my network just by doing what I was going to do anyways. So, Tara, how does somebody wakes up and says, "Oh my God, I need to hire somebody to help me"? What screaming pain are they dealing with that leads them to call you and beg you to help them?
Well, which way do you want to go? Do you want to go the confidence route, the confidence, gratitude, personal development route, the money route, because that's all kind of related, or do you want to go the branding, visibility route?
I feel like I've had a lot of branding conversations, and I feel like you and I need to have the confidence conversation.
Absolutely. Sure.
And thank you for see, this is how relationships work. I asked a question, she clarified, and now we're going to go down a rabbit hole. So come on in and join us.
Yeah, let's go down that, jump on down. They would call me because they feel like they're not married to their soulmate. Success feels out of reach despite hard work and effort. They know what they need to do, but for some reason, something is sabotaging them every time, and they just can't seem to do it. They feel a lack of purpose and fulfillment in their life and want a deeper connection to spirituality and themselves. Ooh. Those are the general pain points that I hear the most. And everything, by the way, that I just mentioned, I have personally experienced.
And for what it's worth, I get that from your profile. And I think that's the first lesson I'm going to give people is read Tara's profile to see how to show up and be yourself. For example, I don't wear suits anymore because I used to go speaking, and I was in the accounting space, and my choices, where do I wear gray or blue? And it was like I was fit into this narrow little box. And I one day accidentally, my luggage got lost. All I had with me was a Hawaiian shirt. And I went on stage, and it polarized the audience. I'm not kidding. One guy at the back of the room said very loudly, "I'm not listening to this effing clown," and he left. And I was like, wow, thank you for raising your hand and saying bye-bye. And then I said, show of hands, anyone else feel this way? I'll refund your money. You can get up and leave. One other person left. And I said to the room, the condition is now you've all accepted me as I am. We are going to have fun together. We're going to spend today. It was a conference. It was a workshop. We are going to have fun. Anybody who doesn't like fun, please leave. And I went home that night and I donated all my suits to charity. And I said, you know what? I don't want to tell people, no, I'm not that weird, serious person. And to me, the branding for me was the Hawaiian shirts.
I love that.
It was an accident, but I was like, I'm going to do more of what works and less of what doesn't work.
That's right. You just have to, whatever your confident in and comfortable in, that's the route to go. I think that's really important too. It's not looking like somebody else. It's not copying someone else. It's not trying to be someone else. It's simply showing up as you are, right? That's what resonates. That's what makes an impact. And I think that's really important, because this applies to men and women. And I'm personally not the type of speaker that goes, I couldn't care about glitter for whatever reason, Jeff. Am I right? There's glitter, there's fireworks, there's sequence.
Yeah.
Sequence, Jeff. Sequence.
Yeah. Oh, God help us.
Not me.
Yeah.
I don't want to have anything to do with glitter or sequence, right? I'm very clean type of style. That's just how I roll.
Yeah.
So you'll never catch me in a pair of sequin anything. And if that's the standard, I guess you're just going to have to get used to minimal, right?
Yep.
That's how I am. So it's just funny, though, how that is what, so many event organizers as well think of when they think of a speaker. They think of somebody who shows up kind of showy.
Yeah.
And it's kind of vanity, and it doesn't add value. And it's really only to attract attention to yourself. It has nothing to do with your message.
Hey, look at me.
It's, hey, look at me. I don't care what it is I'm wearing. I typically wear, plainer clothes and minimal. It's about my message.
Yeah.
That's just it. And the message will resonate. Everything else is just a distraction.
I'll share a weird, funny story. When I was in high school, they brought in a motivational speaker, and the reason they came in was not funny, but we had a couple of suicides, a couple of tragic deaths, and they wanted to bring this person in. And I was 16, 17, and this guy sat next to me. It was just dumb luck. It was the only chair open. And the man reeked of cigarettes and stale coffee. Like literally, I was like, dude, do you sleep in your suit? And he was sitting there muttering to himself, talking himself up. And I just remember as a teenager going, this is the guy that's telling me how to live my life. Because then he got on stage and, I'm pretty sure there was some jazz hands and there was some glitter. And
jazz
I was like,
essential. Yeah.
Who is this freak? And again, not judging him as a human, but he was telling us as kids, oh, you should, enjoy your life. And I was like, you reek of failure. No offense. And he was twitching because he was clearly ready for his next cigarette. And I'm like, yet you're here to tell us how to be. Now, you mentioned the word spirituality. I'm going to come back to that. My people are spiritual.
Same.
And I've realized, and it's funny, for whatever reason, I piss off the religious people. I've actually been told I'm not welcome in Texas because I made a joke about, I wrote a book. It's called The 7 Deadly Sins of Networking. And apparently I was glorifying Satan. And I was like, get over yourselves. The lady who actually came after me and led the charge, she creates ammo. She works in a Texas company that creates ammo for assault rifles. And one of her rounds of ammo had been used in a school shooting. And I said, you really want to talk morality right now?
Yeah.
So I don't do well with religious, but spiritual, I got nothing but time. How do you define spiritual? Because to me, that's a fascinating conversation in and of itself.
Well, I'm currently writing my 3rd book right now. And so I'll just give you a little background on it. It's the GRASP method, but for specifically leaders, right? So I was writing this book, and I'd been writing this book since I think November. And it was just maybe 3 months ago, I took a hard pause. And I realized I'm writing a generic manual. It's yet another needle in a haystack leadership book.
Yeah.
And I realized that, what I was yearning for and have been yearning for my whole life, and the people I was attracting in my life, the conversations I was having in my life were deeply, deeply spiritual. And during that time, I went nosedived in to spirituality, So I'm still, very much on that journey, but my book completely took a turn. So now it's very spiritual. And it's so important because, as a visionary entrepreneur, we, regardless of what religion you are,
Yeah.
what is the best type of leader? They're a servant leader. And why? Why is that the case? Well, they recognize that we're all in unity. There is no division. We should steward each other, bring each other up. There is no gain on the spiritual front or in this physical realm by persecuting other people, by putting other people down, by throwing down the ladder from which you rise.
Okay.
So success is spiritual and leadership is spiritual. And it's about recognizing the dignity of other people. And I am a Christian. I don't put down anyone else, regardless of their views. But one of the things that I've realized too is that we are so loved. And you can feel this. You can feel this. When I brought up, in the beginning of our conversation, give first, give often, give with love. To me, that's very spiritual. When I look at the universe exists, and scientists even say that it's expanding. Expanding into what? Right?
And we're annoyed because we can't measure it. And it's like,
it's expanding. Not only is it expanding into what, I don't know, but it's expanding at a rapid rate.
Yeah.
That tells me that it's giving often because it's constantly creating. So when I look at these patterns in, the universe, nature, life around us, I see a giving force who's wildly creative, right? Who's also very loving. And I put those things together and I'm like, why can't I have affinity of form with that force? And then you look at that and say, how can I make my business like that? How can I be a creative business that doesn't compete with other businesses?
Yep.
How can I collaborate instead of, again, compete?
Yeah.
How can I increase life? How can I give? And how can I do it with love?
Yeah.
And you do this enough, you're going to be a spiritual person. And it doesn't matter what religion you are. I'm not going to say you have to be a specific religion for this.
Yeah.
This is across any religion.
Yeah.
So, the spiritual journey, there's no destination. It's something that it's like an onion. You peel back the layers every single day and get deeper in it.
Yeah.
I will say this, my relationship with gratitude and me discovering that was the first real
That was that first layer you peeled.
Yes. Because it changes you.
Yeah. For what it's worth, visionary entrepreneurs get this. And I had a very similar experience to you with the book. I was writing a very different book. Between you and me, I've written, I think, 120, and I've lost count. But a lot of my books were just, here's how to. Like, literally, you want a how-to manual? I got you covered. And then the last one was like, I need to put me in it. And that's where the lighthouse analogy came from. I'm not here to tell anyone how to be. I'm just here to light the way. And what I found, and I think you're pulling on the same thread I'm pulling, is hate consumes, love creates. And when you're a visionary and you get to that point where you're starting to be grateful for everything, I mean, I can be grateful if somebody walked up to me and punched me in the face. I'd be grateful because they've told me we don't need to hang out anymore. It's that annoying to my wife sometimes. She's like, you're weird. And I'm like, yes, I am. But when you live in that grateful gratitude, you feel love for everything. I end my coaching calls with my clients. I'll say, you're loved. I love you. And my wife's like, that's weird. And I'm like, is it? But we're creating, and you and I together, Tara, we've created something together. And I'm excited because my brain's going, okay, who needs to meet Tara? And it's going to be fun because the right people will get it. But the weird thing, and I just share this with you, I don't know a single visionary entrepreneur who isn't exploring spirituality, gratitude, and love.
Yep.
Now, I'm not saying those three things alone will make you successful, but it makes the journey a hell of a lot more fun. And I laugh a lot when I'm working.
Absolutely. No, I think that's huge. I want to go to your kind of vibe check, right? Huge for me.
Yeah.
I will take on clients from multiple different faiths and backgrounds and this type of thing. But we have to be able to have some kind of a commonality of spirituality that we can talk about. And, I don't have to mention anything specific, but in order for people to be successful, they just have to know they were created on purpose, for a purpose, for someone, from someone who is a creative, who sees you as a piece of a puzzle that without you, this won't work.
Yep.
It's so empowering to be told that from somebody else.
Yeah.
And I see that in them. I see the potential. I see the purpose. And sometimes that's all it takes in order for people to really step into their power, step into, their purpose, their authenticity, and what have you, is for somebody else to tell them, you know what, you are capable. You are so worthy. You are so loved. You're so blessed. Let's find the gratitude in whatever bad thing may have happened to you. And how can we use that to propagate your purpose and increase life for others?
Well, and I'll add that if you find the gratitude, you quickly find the lesson. It's because usually I will admit I've been there. You wallow in self-pity, and it's like I'm not learning in that mode. The energy level is zero. And it's woe is me. I have a pity party. How come nobody showed up? And then I'm sad because nobody came to my pity party. Whereas if I look at something with gratitude and I find the lesson, I'm just going to share this from my spiritual journey. Whenever I walk through that hell of the soul, the reward on the other side, it's almost like the universe is like, I have this gift for you. When you do the work, go through hell, I will give it to you. And it's like, I now love going through hell because it means I'm getting closer to the gift. If I happen to be in hell, I'm rather avoid it. But I know that anytime I'm going through hell, I'm growing.
I was just having the same conversation yesterday. When you're about to step into something big, you're going to get tested. And that's not a bad thing. It means you aren't just not quite prepared yet, not quite refined yet. You might not have all the tools yet.
Yeah.
So you have to go through these adversities in order to, get to that level that you want to be at. I liken it to a blacksmith. They take a blunt piece of metal, which really couldn't hurt anybody, right? And what do? They throw it through the fire. They bring it out. They beat it with a hammer. They stick it in ice water. They put it back in the fire again. And it comes out as this super sharp, beautiful object that's really capable of the exact purpose that it's intended for, right?
Yeah.
Same thing with so many things in life. If we look at exercise, when I lift weights, I'm using resistance training. It breaks down the muscle.
Yeah.
The muscle is actually breaking down, but it has to break down in order to build itself even bigger, right? The same thing with all of us in life. It's that adversity that makes you stronger. It's that resistance. We don't learn anything in the comfort zone. We don't grow. We have to go through those things. And, my mindset is very similar to yours. If I'm going through something, which is plenty of the time, I think, right?
Yay, something's coming.
I think, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I can't but wait to see what's on the other side of this.
Yeah. Ooh, it's like Christmas morning. I'm going to open the presents.
Yes.
Now, Tara, I could talk to you all day, and I'm sure my people could listen to us talk all day. I do want to be mindful of your time. what should I have asked you? What have we not talked about that you wish I would have asked?
Oh my gosh, we talked about so much.
We covered the universe, spirituality, God's faith. We might have missed something in there.
I think my question to you and to everybody is, when you have self-doubt, because it happens to everybody, so we were talking about confidence, the question I want everybody to ask is, whose voice is it? Okay, because I challenged a client of mine just last week, and she said, I'm just really battling with self-doubt, ruminating thoughts. And I asked her, does it even sound like you? She said, no, it doesn't. And she said, I said, would you say that to your worst enemy? She said, no, I wouldn't. I said, so where'd it come from? She said, I don't know. And I said, then it's not real.
Yeah.
So we have to think about this as entrepreneurs, because self-doubt is not real. And if you listen to it, I want everybody to ask themselves this reflective question: whose team am I playing on, and whose voice am I listening to?
I love it. I love it. I would add a third question: where is the voice coming from? Because I found there's certain childhood voices that you remember, but it's weird because people hear it in different places. And for me, my voice, I always hear it over here. It's outside, external, but it's loud and clear in my ear. And anything that doesn't come from there, I know is someone else.
It's real.
Yeah.
And I challenge everybody to really examine that, because self-doubt is the killer of success. It's the killer of confidence. It's the killer of all dreams.
Yeah.
And it's not you. It never has been you. And I identify this in my book as a trick from the opponent.
I love it. All right, Tara, I could talk to you all day. Last question. Where can people go to connect with you? I will connect you with your LinkedIn, but where's the best place to learn more about you and the amazing things you do?
Absolutely. I'm very active on LinkedIn, Tara LaFon Gooch. Check me out there. I'm also on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook, although I'm not as active. And then there's also my website, TaraLaFonGooch.com is a great place to find me as well.
Awesome. Well, I say this sincerely. Thank you for hanging out with me and sharing your views of what it's like to be a visionary entrepreneur.
Thank you so much, Jeff.